Who is going to step up in the pass rush for the Cardinals this season?
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my 6th year covering the University of Louisville, 4th year hosting this show. And I want to take the time to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. Yesterday's show, we kicked off the top 15 player rankings for football. It is a 5-part series. We discussed numbers 15 through 13 yesterday. We are moving on to identify numbers 12 through 10 today. We're sticking on the defensive side of the football. We'll discuss 2 edge rushers that are expected to play key roles in the Cardinals pass rush this season. Also, a multiple-year starter at one of the linebacker spots. So, for reference, number 15 was Rodney Johnson Jr., number 14, Renee Conga, number 13, Jordan Gerard. Now, before we identify number 12, again, I will point out that it's all opinionated, of course. My criteria, there's like 4 categories that sort of mesh together, and it just kind of forms, it's like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. The overall talent, the value that this player has for the team in respect to the position, right? Like quarterback is, of course, a very, very valuable position. Projected statistical production is a certain player producing a ton. And then how that player ranks and compares amongst his peers across the conference. So there's sometimes it's just kind of a judgment thing, and it really just depends on the context. Number 12, we're going to the defensive line. Rutgers defensive end transfer Wesley Bailey is number 12 on my list. Spent 4 seasons with the Scarlet Knights dating back to 2021, 2021. Didn't get much run. He had breakout years in 22 and 23. 28 tackles, 3.5 sacks, and 2 PBUs. His first breakout year. And then in 2023, 25 tackles, 3 passes deflected, a career high, 4 sacks. And it seemed like 2024 was going to be a really fruitful year for Wesley Bailey. Now, he dealt with injuries. He only played 4 games this past season, 9 tackles, 1 pass deflected, and 1 sack. So maintained that redshirt year by only playing 4 games. He joins a Louisville program that sort of is searching for that new identity. If you look back to years past, at that defensive end spot, it was one that Yaya Diaby occupied for a couple seasons. And then most notably, a spot that Ashton Gillotte occupied for multiple seasons. And now you're seeing life post Ashton Gillotte in a Cardinals uniform, but it's not just him. It's Mason Riger, Tramel Logan, Richard Kinley. I mean, Ramon Purrier, like the list goes on. Like you're searching for a new identity, seeing who's going to step up, whether it's at the defensive end spot, whether it's at the Leo spot. And I think Wesley Bailey is a prime candidate to be that potential starter at defensive end for the Cardinals. 6 foot, I think 6'5", 265 is what Wesley Bailey measured in at, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong there. 6'5", 265, really solid strength that he brings to the defensive line. Ultimately, like, I look at this and the stats might not jump off the page, but I put a little bit more weight into the statistics considering that he did it in a really offensive line strong conference. Like the Big Ten is known for being massive in the trenches. Like it is a trenches conference. You win games in the trenches. And for Wesley Bailey to not only find his way onto the field, but to have a good amount of success, like I feel like it bodes well for what he can expect for the ACC. Like the ACC isn't as, trench dominant as the Big Ten. And 6'5", 265 can sort of seal that edge and defend the run, but also giving you that pass rush that you just are looking for. Like you're desperate for at this point because you don't really have much returning production on the roster. So I am high on Wesley Bailey. I know that it could very well be a by committee thing at defensive end. I think Micah Carter is going to hear his number called multiple times this fall at Cardinals Stadium. And you've got some other players out on the outside that could factor into the mix. But Wesley Bailey, even, with the competition, it seemed like he was the player that most thought was going to start at defensive end when you kind of took a look at the transfer portal haul as a whole going into spring ball. So has the prototypical size, has the production at a Big Ten school. I think that that's going to bode well for the ACC. Looking at the potential statistical production, that's where things get interesting because each and every season it's different. Like last season, Ashton Gelati had 4.5 sacks, and that led the team. Like you had 3 players with at least 4 sacks, and then kind of a hodgepodge after that. Like there were like upwards of 10 players with at least a sack and a half. 2023 was, of course, a huge year for Gelati in the defensive backfield. You also had Mason Riger with 5, Ramon Purrier with 4, so it wasn't as spread out. And then 2022 was just a huge pass rush year for the Cardinals. 9.5 sacks from Abdullah, 9 from Diaby, 7 from Gelati, 6 from Montgomery, 4.5 from Sanogo, 3 from Dorian Jones. Like this was one of the better pass rushing defenses that Louisville's had in a while. So, what is it going to look like, right? I mean, is it going to be a season where the Cardinals have close to 50 sacks? I would be somewhat surprised, but is it also going to be a season where, like last year, where you had 34? I think it's going to be closer to 50 than it is 30. I think it's going to be in the 40s. Like I think Louisville's pass rush is going to be one of the more underrated aspects of this team. And you got to think last year's team, it took a while for them to get going. Like for whatever reason, the pass rush just wasn't getting home. And I think you can contribute that to playing a good amount of rushing quarterbacks, like running quarterbacks, guys that can get out and utilize that mobility. This year, you're not playing as many mobile quarterbacks. So I think you look at the statistical production. I'm going to go with, let's say, this is tough because I think you're going to get, that by committee approach and you're going to have some really solid interior guys. I'm going to say 33 total tackles. And we'll go 5 sacks for the Cardinals. I think that that's where Wesley Bailey is going to sit at. The reason he is on this list is because he's a projected starter at defensive end, has that production from the Big Ten, like I said, which I put a ton of stock into because of the identity of that conference. And I mean, Rutgers wasn't really all that good anyway, but Wesley Bailey was a good piece on that defense. He can seal the edge and defend the run, which is going to be awesome. And just overall, like I believe in the talent. I believe in the size. Like it combines together and it forms what I believe is going to be a really, really good season for Bailey. Now, why is he number 12 and not higher up this list? And I just think that you'll see, when we get to the top part of this list, there are players that will very possibly be some of the best players at their position in the conference, potentially in the country. That's how top heavy this team projects to be. But outside of that, like what separates Wesley Bailey from the 4 ahead of him, which, spoiler alert, they're all defensive players. And I think it's just the overall talent aspect. Like Wesley Bailey is, of course, very talented. But the other guy we're going to talk about today, like, might be the most talented player on this defensive line, and a player that we'll talk about tomorrow is probably the most polished pass rusher on the team and probably the most sought-after transfer that we had on defense. So Wesley Bailey lands at number 12 for me. I feel like that's a good spot. It's not too high, not too low. It recognizes the impact that he's likely to have, but it's also being realistic with what to expect. And that is that, it's still going to be a by committee approach for the Cardinals at that defensive end spot. So number 12, Wesley Bailey. Number 11 is a multiple-year starter at linebacker who will be, of course, a key part of this defense in 2025. We'll tell you who that is when we come back on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Card Nation, first I want to take the time to tell you about our friends over at Monarch Money. If you ever wish managing your money felt easier, well, now you have the solution, Monarch Money. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a large purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, which gives you full visibility and control over your finances, because you'll realize that Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. Like for me, I think having everything all in one app makes it so much easier to manage my day-to-day finances. And I have gotten I've recognized the subscriptions that were just kind of taking money from my account without me knowing. And Monarch Money said, hey, look, this is what you got going on. Let's take care of that. And I never would have known had it not been for Monarch Money. So take control of your finances like I did with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege for half off of your first year. As always, thank you so very much for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. This week dedicated to the revealing of the top 15 player rankings, my personal top 15 player rankings that I kind of went back and forth on, where some of these guys ranked. And I'll be honest, I think that the 15 players weren't really up for debate for me. I mean, there were some very great honorable mentions, but I knew who the 15 were going to be. I kind of went back and forth on their order. So number 11, you kind of understand who it is by the description, multiple year starter at linebacker. That, of course, is TJ Quinn. TJ Quinn has been a mainstay for this Cardinals defense over the past 3 seasons. Of course, committed to the Cardinals as a safety out of high school. And I really liked his skill set as a safety. Now, he got to campus and Louisville said, you know what? We're going to have you add some weight. We're going to have you add some strength, and we're going to convert you into being a linebacker. And that wasn't the only situation in which Louisville did that, right? Jalen Alderman, who's in the same class. Like Jalen Alderman was in that same class, and they did the same with him. Like he was a safety coming out of high school, and they said, you know what, we're going to convert you into linebacker. TJ Quinn spent his first year, 2 total tackles. 2022 was able to take another step with 18 tackles. And then when Brom got to Louisville, he was ready. TJ was absolutely ready. He broke out in 2023. 91 total tackles, 33 solo, 58 assisted, 2 pass deflections, half a sack, and 1 interception. And then in 2024, he resumed being that almost every down starter, 82 tackles, 35 solo, 47 assisted, 1.5 sacks. Now, he had a good season. Don't get me wrong. And you can't put all the blame on him. You can't put all the blame on any one player, but Louisville's defense really wasn't all that great. 100th nationally in passing yards allowed. They gave up so much in the middle of the field. It drove everyone crazy, and it was consistent over and over and over. And yeah, like they might have figured it out at the end of the season, but like we discussed yesterday, how much of that was playing bad offenses? Pittsburgh didn't have Eli Holstein. They crumbled. Kentucky, the first 11 people that hopped in this live video, you all could have defended Kentucky in the Governor's Cup last season. Kentucky was not good, especially offensively. Like they just could not move the ball. So how much of that, and then you saw the Sun Bowl, like the Cardinals got gashed again. So how much of that was scheme? How much of it was personnel? Probably a combination of both, right? The reason that TJ Quinn is on this list is because, I mean, it's obvious. He's going to likely have 80 plus tackles again. He's going to be a starter at linebacker. He's going to be, I don't know what the term in this Louisville system is, the green dot or the red dot if you're going Cardinal base, the one who's calling the plays out on the defense. I think TJ Quinn is going to be that leader, that fifth-year guy that the Cardinals rely upon to lead the way for this defense. And that's why he's on this list. Like, a list without TJ Quinn, I think, is an incorrect list. And I know that this is all opinionated, but if TJ Quinn's not on your list, I think it's wrong. Now, the reason he's at 11, lower than maybe some would put him, is because I think that we need to see more from him in coverage. Like, he is very, very good defending the run. He's very good in pursuit, getting to the line of scrimmage and wreaking havoc. But as we saw with the linebacker core in general last year, coverage was an issue. And I think that with TJ Quinn, it was an issue. And it wasn't just him, of course. Like, we're not singling him out. We're just explaining why he's a little bit further down the list than maybe some would have him at. And I kind of went back and forth with TJ, and I'm a huge fan of TJ. Huge fan. And I hope that he has a hell of a final year in Louisville and is able to carve out that role in the NFL. Like, he's been one of the players over the past couple of years that I've just cheered a ton for. And I think he's going to have a really good season. And that's exactly why he's on this list. Again, like, yeah, the coverage ability is something that you kind of worry about with TJ. That's, why he's at that, middle linebacker spot and not that weak side linebacker. But if he can just prove to be serviceable in that regard, I think it's going to be key. And, Louisville's, of course, going to have him leading the charge and defending the run, which, again, is his strong suit. I mean, TJ Quinn, he's good for at least 1 to 2, like, boom, in your face. You can hear the hit from the flight deck type tackles. 6'1", 230 pounds. I mean, this guy is just jacked. And he's a guy like him and Antonio Watts just lay the boom in that linebacking core. And it's just awesome to watch him play, defending the run, going sideline to sideline, tackling ball carriers. Like, I believe that Quinn is, again, going to have a really good season. What does this statistical number come out to? Like, what are the stats projecting at? So 2023, 91 tackles, 2024, 82 tackles. I will say this. I think that he records 2 sacks. So that would be a career high for him. He had half a sack in 23, 1.5 in 2024. I think that he gets to that 2-sack number. I think that this is the season where he will have a career high in solo tackles, but not total tackles, because I think that you've got some other players like Caleb Perry, TJ Caper, Stanquan Clark that are going to, of course, be flying around, Antonio Watts. So I'm going to say 85 total tackles for TJ Quinn in 2025, 2 sacks, 1 pass deflection. And you know what? For the hell of it, 1 forced fumble. I think he's going to force his first fumble in his college career this season. So Quinn is at number 11 for me. I think that the reason he got the nod over Wesley Bailey for this spot is because of the returning production. Like, he's played within this system. He's probably a safer selection at number 11. Like, you kind of understand what you're going to get. Like, TJ Quinn's going to be a high number of tackles, mainstay at inside linebacker for the Cardinals. And Wesley Bailey, I mean, here's the thing about it is that I took into consideration, this could very well also be a breakout season for Micah Carter. Like, this is his 3rd season with the program. Saint X product, has that, prototypical size and strength that you're looking for at defensive end. Like, he's been waiting his turn. He had a really good spring. Like, could this be a chance for him to break out, and where, maybe the snap share is more even than we thought between Bailey and Carter? But you know what you're going to get out of TJ Quinn. Like, he's going to play a ton, and he's sort of that safer selection on this list. So that's why he got to number 11 for me on this list. Number 10 is like my first, like, legit real gamble. And I will lead the charge on this one unapologetically. We'll tell you who number 10 is when we come back on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. But first, Card Nation, let's talk about our friends over at 5-Hour Energy. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies, which I don't do, or you're just making memories with friends, I do that. This one's a hole-in-one for your energy game because some days on the course or off of it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. On Sunday, I played 9. Tee time was 7:30. And when I got there, I was just like, man, I'm just feeling groggy. Quickly took a 5-Hour Energy. And by hole 2, I was ready to go. I could have played 27 holes, 36 holes that day. But regardless, that's a little bit more money than I was thinking. But if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that's number 5, hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good for subscription orders. Just a heads up once again, Card Nation, when you've tuned into this, understand that I am out of town. I will be out of town for a good portion of this week for work. So all of these player ranking episodes are pre-recorded. If breaking news happens, I'll do my best to discuss it, but chances are we won't be able to talk about it until Friday. So I'm sort of selfishly hoping that it is a slow news week and we can just kind of churn out these player rankings. But speaking of player rankings, 10 to go. Top 10. Who is number 10? Well, if you listen to the beginning, you understand that I talked about 2 edge rushers. Well, the first is Wesley Bailey. Number 10 is an internal candidate. That is Adonijah Green is number 10 on this list. I'll be completely honest with you. I have held out the hope since he committed to Louisville that he was going to turn into a star. He was one of the top players in that famous Flyville 23 class, top 200 prospect in the country, 6'5", 206 pounds coming out of high school. Now, if I'm not mistaken, he grew an inch, right? 6'6", 250. So he's added about 45 pounds worth of muscle. And look, this is a projection if I've ever seen one. Like, I am banking on Adonijah Green turning it up. Like, I'm banking on it clicking this year, and he turns into an absolute beast. 2023, he had 3 tackles. 2024, he increased that number to 12. He also had 1 sack. That 1 sack came in the win at Virginia on October 12th. He only played in 5 games. So, and of course, he played behind Gelati and Miles Jernigan and other players. Now, Adonijah Green is the first player that I believe is projected to be a backup on this list. I think he is the backup to Clev Lubin, the Coastal Carolina transfer, at that Leo spot. However, I do think that he will get enough opportunities to be able to make a huge impact, and I think that he's going to capitalize on that. Truth be told, when you look up and down at this defensive line, specifically at defensive end and that Leo spot, that outside linebacker at the line of scrimmage, Adonijah Green has the highest upside. Like, he is probably the player with the most pure pass rush toolkit on this line. Like, the highest potential by far. Like, this is a guy, like, I know we say this and it gets watered down because it kind of becomes cliche. This is a guy that truly can play on Sundays. Like, if it clicks for him, if he figures it out, the sky is the limit. And we could be talking about one of the better seasons for a pass rush in Louisville history, but that is a big if. Does that come in 2025? Probably not. That's probably a 2026 discussion. But I see a very, very possible reality where he bursts onto the scene and is a solid pass rush specialist. Now, he had a good spring. He had a good spring game. He wreaked a lot of havoc on that Louisville offensive line in the spring. He's a guy that I'm really watching to see how he performs in fall camp. I think he's going to get a good amount of opportunity in the first 3 non-conference games of the year to sort of carve out that role, prove that he's, definitely belonging in the 2 deep, and sort of kind of pad those stats a little bit. And I got to be honest, I am expecting him to be up there in terms of top sack numbers. I projected, and look, I'm getting really, really lofty with these goals. But I think it's going to be one of those years where like Louisville has a surplus of guys with over 3 sacks. Like I predicted Conga to have 4.5, Gerard to have 4.5, Wesley Bailey to have 5. I think Adonijah Green jumps that number up, and I think he's going to have 5. I think he's going to have 5. So him and Wesley Bailey will be tied for second, in my opinion, with or behind the player that we'll talk about tomorrow. But that would be 10 sacks between them. And so 19 total between those 4 players. And I think that it's very realistic to think that this is a by committee approach. Like, I don't think that there's one guy that's just going to jump off the page in terms of like recording double-digit sacks. Like, I don't think that that's going to happen. But Adonijah Green is on this list because of the potential. Like, this is where projection, overall talent comes into play. Like, I think he's going to like force Brom's hands. Like, you can't keep me off the field much. Like, this is where, 6'6", 250 pounds with his bend, with his aggression on that outside. Like, I just think that Green is going to be a player he's a breakout candidate. Now, to play the devil's advocate, he is only number 10, despite maybe being like a top, I'm not kidding, he's like a top 5-6 talented player on this team. Like, the talent and the potential's there. The potential might be like top 4. But the reason he's all the way down at number 10 in these rankings is because there is definitely a risk. Like, a guy that had 12 tackles and 1 sack last year, like, it's sort of a really rich jump to throw him into the top 5 to 6. Like, I want to be realistic. And even though I think that this is a breakout year for him, I think we have to kind of, I'm not going to say tone it down, but just be honest about what he could do this year. He can be a huge contributor for this team, but this team has some pretty substantial contributors, especially on the offensive side of the ball. In the top 10, spoiler alert, I mean, it's filled with offensive guys, with a couple of defensive guys here throughout. But I really am excited to see what AJ Green is able to accomplish this year in a larger role for this Cardinals pass rush. So 12 through 10. Number 12, defensive end Wesley Bailey. Number 11, inside linebacker TJ Quinn. And number 10 is Leo/edge rusher Adonijah Green. We're not done with the defense yet. 9 through 7 has more defense to discuss, but we will have our first offensive player to talk about when we return on tomorrow's show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Go Cards.